Episode 122.
That's right, said Neville, nodding. And his Death Eaters, too. People should know.
Neville left his sentence hanging and returned to his baked potato. Seamus looked up, but when he caught Harry's eye, he looked quickly back at his plate again. After a while, Dean, Seamus, and Neville departed for the common room, leaving Harry and Hermione at the table waiting for Ron, who had not yet had dinner because of Quidditch practice. Cho Chang walked into the hall with her friend Marietta. Harry's stomach gave an unpleasant lurch, but she did not look over at the Gryffindor table and sat down with her back to him.
"Oh, I forgot to ask you,"
said Hermione brightly, glancing over at the Ravenclaw table.
"What happened on your date with Joe? How come you were back so early?"
Well, it was, said Harry, pulling a dish of rhubarb crumble toward him and helping himself to seconds. A complete fiasco, now you mention it. And he told her what had happened in Madame Puttyfoot's tea shop. So then, he finished several minutes later, as the final bit of crumble disappeared, she jumps up, right, and says,
"I'll see you round, Harry,"
and runs out of the place. He put down his spoon and looked at Hermione. I mean, what was that all about? What was going on? Hermione glanced over at the back of Cho's head and sighed.
"Oh, Harry," she said sadly. "Well, I'm sorry, but you were a bit tactless."
"Me tactless," said Harry, outraged. One minute we're getting on fine, next minute she was telling me that Roger Davies asked her out and how she used to go and snog Cedric in that stupid tea shop. How was I supposed to feel about that?
"Well, you see,"
said Hermione, with the patient air of one explaining that 1 + 1 = 2 to an over-emotional toddler.
"you shouldn't have told her that you wanted to meet me halfway through your date." But,
spluttered Harry, "but you told me to meet you at 12 and to bring her along. How was I supposed to do that without telling her?"
"You should have told her differently,"
said Hermione, still with that maddeningly patient air.
"You should have said it was really annoying, but I'd made you promise to come along to the Three Broomsticks, and you really didn't want to go. You'd much rather spend the whole day with her, but unfortunately you thought you really ought to meet me, and would she please, please come along with you, and hopefully you'd be able to get away more quickly? And it might have been a good idea to mention how ugly you think I am, too,"
Hermione added, as an afterthought. "But I don't think you're ugly," said Harry, bemused. Hermione laughed.
"Harry, you're worse than Ron." Well, no, you're not," she sighed,
as Ron himself came stumping into the hall, splattered with mud and looking grumpy.
"Look, you upset Cho when you said you were going to meet me, so she tried to make you jealous. It was her way of trying to find out how much you liked her."
"Is that what she was doing?" said Harry, as Ron dropped onto the bench opposite them and pulled every dish within reach toward himself. "Well, wouldn't it have been easier if she'd just asked me whether I liked her better than you?"
"Girls don't often ask questions like that," said Hermione.
"Well, they should," said Harry forcefully. "Then I could have just told her I fancy her, and she wouldn't have had to go get herself all worked up again about Cedric dying."
"I'm not saying what she did was sensible,"
said Hermione, as Ginny joined them, just as muddy as Ron and looking equally disgruntled.
"I'm just trying to make you see how she was feeling at the time."
"You should write a book," Ron told Hermione as he cut up his potatoes, "translating mad things girls do so boys can understand them." "Yeah," said Harry fervently, looking over at the Ravenclaw table. Jo had just got up. Still not looking at him, she left the great hall. Feeling rather depressed, he looked back at Ron and Ginny. "So how was Quidditch practice?" "It was a nightmare," said Ron in a surly voice.
"Oh, come on," said Hermione, looking at Ginny. "I'm sure it wasn't that bad."
"Yes, it was," said Ginny. "It was appalling. Angelina was nearly in tears by the end of it." Ron and Ginny went off for baths after dinner. Harry and Hermione returned to the busy Gryffindor common room and their usual pile of homework. Harry had been struggling with a new star chart for astronomy for half an hour when Fred and George turned up. "Ron and Ginny not here?" asked Fred, looking around as he pulled up a chair, and when Harry shook his head, he said, "Good. We were watching their practice. They're going to be slaughtered. They're complete rubbish without us." "Ah, come on, Ginny's not bad," said George fairly, sitting down next to Fred. "Actually, I don't know how she got so good, seeing how we never let her play with us."
She's been breaking into your broom shed in the garden since the age of 6, taking each of your brooms out in turn when you weren't looking,"
said Hermione, from behind her tottering pile of ancient rune books.
"Oh,"
said George, looking mildly impressed.
"Well, that'd explain it." "Has Ron saved a goal yet?"
asked Hermione, peering over the top of magical hieroglyphs and logograms.
"Well, he can do it if he doesn't think anyone's watching him," said Fred, rolling his eyes. "So all we have to do is ask the crowd to turn their backs and talk among themselves every time the quaffle goes up his end on Saturday."
He got up again and moved restlessly to the window, staring out across the dark grounds.
"You know, Quidditch was about the only thing in this place worth staying for."
Hermione cast him a stern look.
"You've got exams coming." "Tells you already, we're not fussed about notes," said Fred. "The snack boxes are ready to roll. We found out how to get rid of those boils. Just a couple drops of Murtlap essence sorts them out. Lee put us onto it."
George yawned widely and looked out disconsolately at the cloudy night sky.
"I don't know if I even want to watch this match. If Zacharias Smith beats us, I might have to kill myself." "Kill him, more likely," said Fred firmly. "That's the trouble with Quidditch,"
said Hermione absent-mindedly, once again bent over her rune translation.
"It creates all this bad feeling and tension between the houses."
She looked up to find her copy of Spellman's syllabary and caught Fred, George, and Harry looking at her with expressions of mingled disgust and incredulity on their faces.
"Well, it does," she said impatiently. "It's only a game, isn't it?"
"Hermione," said Harry, shaking his head, "you're good on feelings and stuff, but you just don't understand about Quidditch."
"Maybe not," she said darkly, returning to her translation again. "But at least my happiness doesn't depend on Ron's goal-keeping ability."
And though Harry would rather have jumped off the astronomy tower than admit it to her, by the time he had watched the game the following Saturday, he would have given any number of galleons not to care about Quidditch either. The very best thing you could say about the match was that it was short. The Gryffindor spectators had to endure only 22 minutes of agony. It was hard to say what the worst thing was. Harry thought it was a close-run contest between Ron's 14th failed save, Sloper missing the bludger but hitting Angelina in the mouth with his bat, and Kirk shrieking and falling backwards off his broom as Zacharias Smith zoomed at him carrying the waffle. The miracle was that Gryffindor only lost by 10 points. Ginny managed to catch the snitch from right under Hufflepuff Seeker Summerby's nose, so that the final score was 240 versus 230. "Good catch," Harry told Ginny back in the common room, where the atmosphere closely resembled that of a particularly dismal funeral.
"I was lucky," she shrugged. "It wasn't a very fast snitch, and Summerby's got a cold. He sneezed and closed his eyes at exactly the wrong moment. Anyway, once you're back on the team—"
"Ginny, I've got a lifelong ban." "Your banned as long as Umbridge is in the school," Ginny corrected him. "There's a difference. Anyway, once you're back, I think I'll try out for Chaser. Angelina and Alicia are both leaving next year, and I prefer goal scoring to seeking anyway." Harry looked over at Ron, who was hunched in a corner, staring at his knees, a bottle of butterbeer clutched in his hand. "Angelina still won't let him resign," Ginny said, as though reading Harry's mind. "She says she knows he's got it in him.